This is a great quote, by the way, but this video is really raising a question on if God exists. Um, I'm going to let this play out. This really is not that difficult as this guy's about to make it seem. He's about to go all over the world for something that's so basic and simple. So I'm going to let him rock out and then address it at the end.
Does God exist? That question sits quietly behind nearly everything, behind politics, behind ethics, behind how people raise their children, and behind how they face death. It's the kind of question that looks like it belongs in a philosophy class or a dusty old book, but it shows up in hospital rooms, in wars, in courtrooms, and in conversations between people who just want to understand the world. The majority of people alive today still believe in some form of God. Many don't just believe, they're certain. They may never have questioned it. But when you do ask, really ask, the idea starts to unravel in very quiet ways. Start with something simple. What does it even mean to say God exists? The word God isn't one idea. In some cultures, it's a single, all-powerful being. In others, it's a collection of divine forces. Sometimes it's a personal father figure who listens to prayers. Other times it's a vague force of nature. If a word can mean almost anything, how do we even begin to answer the question? But let's take the most common definition, the one most people in the Western world think of. A conscious, intelligent, all-powerful being who created the universe and watches over it. If that kind of being exists, there should be evidence, just like with anything else that exists. Not proof in some cosmic sense, but something observable. Some say the existence of the universe is the proof. The universe exists, therefore someone must have made it. But that idea doesn't actually explain anything. If everything needs a creator, then who created God? If God just exists without a cause, then we've just moved the mystery one level higher. Saying God did it is like answering a question with a different question and pretending that counts as an answer. Others point to complexity. Look at the human eye, look at DNA, look at how perfectly tuned the laws of physics seem to be. But complexity doesn't mean design. Snowflakes are complex, so are crystals, so are weather patterns. Complexity is a product of rules and time, not intent. Evolution through natural selection is one of the most powerful explanations we've ever discovered. It takes small changes over long periods and produces forms that seem perfectly designed. But they're not perfect. The human spine is a disaster of engineering. The laryngeal nerve in a giraffe travels 15 feet when it only needs to travel a few inches. These aren't the choices of an intelligent designer. They're the leftover scaffolding of blind, slow change. Nature doesn't build with blueprints, it builds with leftovers. Some say morality points to God, that we have a sense of right and wrong, so someone must have given it to us. But morality isn't universal. What people consider right and wrong changes over time, culture, and circumstance. There were times when slavery was moral, when burning women for witchcraft was justice. Today, we find those ideas horrific. Our moral compass is clearly shaped by environment, empathy, and consequence.
So I know this guy doesn't have much to go off of, so he's just going off of what society and people generally say. The problem with that is that fluctuates. When you relate it to the book, we read that the Most High does not change. People will change. People are quote unquote fugazi, not the Most High. So he really doesn't have much to go off of because he doubts God himself. So the reason why I initially said that this guy is going to make this difficult is with this. We're in the Hebrew because the Hebrews knew the most about, God, because all cultures and civilizations that this guy is referring to got their understanding with knockoff understandings of the Hebrews. And I say knockoff understandings of the Hebrew. So right here we see in the Hebrew language God or Elohim originally is where the term God comes from. However, God is not, we tend to use this, as he stated in his own video, this Western civilization understanding of God. The problem with that is Western civilization is ignorant and it's very degenerate. So why would you use that as a basis to understand God? Western civilization is one of the most ignorant, it's beyond degenerate, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, that's a bad example to use. This is a better example. It just means Elohim or judges, because that's power, or the Elohim. To say that there's no God or to doubt it is to say that you doubt that power exists. There are higher powers and lower powers. So right here, we see in the beginning, God created, and we know that this is the heavens and the earth. Okay, so he had some right and some wrong in there. But again, the very fact that human beings can create something, that is a power in itself that comes from the Almighty creator of things. He's talking about the existence and being able to see something to see if there's a God. Well, that very fact shows that there's a God. But again, going back to the Hebraic and natural understanding and not the ignorant, degenerate Western understanding. Because ignorant, degenerate Western European understanding of God is some dude living in the clouds, just hand puppets and whatever some dumbass religion created. That's not Hebraic, that's not natural, that's not Bible. So plural of Alawa, gods in the ordinary sense, but specifically used in plural because it's a collection of angels, as the book states, of the supreme God, occasionally, again, supreme God. There's lower gods, occasionally applied by way of difference to magistrates. Okay, so, or judges. That's why you see judges. Judges have power. Okay. Let's see what's down here. Divine, exceedingly, God. Well, yeah, God and then God. Talking about the lower gods, okay? Goddess, godly, God's great, judges, mighty ruler. Again, to rule means you have power, right? What's down here? This is just other examples of it. But basically, that's my point. Also, the book shows that in 2 Corinthians, it says you have the God of this world, blinding the minds of them which believe not. Okay, this is people, the very people that say that there is no God, have their eyes blinded by the God of this world. This is very simple. None of this is religious. The fact that I'm reading this from the book is evidence that it is not religious. Because again, God just means power. Does Satan, who this is talking about, does he have power? Well, of course, the power to blind people's minds through deception. This is very simple when you remove the Western civilization lenses and the religious lenses. This is very, very simple to understand. But if you're looking at this book with the lenses of religion on, you're going to be and take away religious bullshit that was never there in the first place. So that's why I said this is very simple to understand. There are higher gods, there are lower gods, there are lower gods that the higher God said to not worship. That's one of your commandments. There's a religious understanding saying that there's only one God. That is not true. Because if there's only one God, why would that one God tell you to not worship the other gods, the gods of the nations? Think about it. Common sense. There are gods with lesser power. Okay? But nonetheless, gods, plural, do exist. To question that makes you insane. So right here in the book of Psalms 14, it says, the fool has said in his heart. Now this is a fool. What is he going to say? There is no God, in reference to the Most High. Your belief is your belief, but people will choose to believe things that are just not true because it doesn't make it feel good. People are ruled by their emotions. Emotion is a power. Emotions run most people in the Western world. That's why you shouldn't use the Western world as an example to suggest that or doubt rather that there's no God. It's an ignorant nation ran by emotions. They're a bunch of fools. They do abominable works, especially lately. Power. The fact that there's consequence for your actions shows that there's a God, because that's judgment for your actions. That's why I'm using the Hebrews understanding, because they've had the best and most incorruptible and clearest understandings and examples of God. Why in the hell would I stick with or use what some people just say? And again, from the Western civilization, it's a bunch of goddamn clowns. I really just wanted to be in and out with this. This is crystal clear. Again, belief is only belief. Believe what you want, but then there's reality. So pick one. So that's all I have for now, as it is written, and I'm out.